Hello, welcome back to the channel, and today on the review desk we have something truly special. This is Axis model Osiris Aerial Dominator. The name is quite a handful, so I'm gonna call it Bell Pepper for the rest of this review. So as per usual, let's start from the top. This kit is a lot of parts. It comes in 3 boxes, 2 of which are pretty large. And one contains the LED modules, that one is a bit small, and also it has like effect parts. But I was told by one of you in the comments that this kit actually has more parts than the Sky Defender, while being in a smaller scale. This is 1/100 scale, while Sky Defender is 1/72. So you can imagine there is a lot of detail in this kit. Quite a lot of those runners go into the inner frame, and speaking of the inner frame, it is pretty tight. Granted, it needs to be tight to hold the amount of weight that this kit generates. As you can probably see, the bell peppers alone are quite massive, and obviously the inner frame needs to be able to hold it. The construction of most of the inner frame is pretty straightforward. However, the inner frame is like a layer, like the MGX does with Bandai. So you start with the functional gray part of the inner frame, and then you add a lot of plated plastic to it to add more detail to it. And the plated plastic needed quite a few pegs needed thinning. So be careful with that. If it's tight, just a little bit of hobby knife, and you're pretty much there. The rest of the inner frame build-up is pretty straightforward. The manual guides you through that pretty easily. And as part of the inner frame installation as well, you're gonna be installing the LEDs. I did cover the LEDs for this kit in a separate video mostly, and I have a guide on how to USB power wire your own LEDs for this kit. But for the sake of transparency and also to make this review comprehensive for this kit specifically, this kit comes with LEDs. There are LEDs that go into the chest and head unit, and there are LED sets, separate ones for each of the 4 bell peppers, right? And they are not connected, and they are all battery powered. And the batteries do not come with the kit. At least I think for international shipping, you won't get the batteries. So you're gonna need to buy a lot of batteries. There will be 8 plus 2, because they are separated, they are not synchronized, which is a bit of a problem in my book. So the bell peppers, they are activated by position switch. So inside of each bell pepper, there is like a position switch at the top part of the bell pepper, and a lot of LEDs that are in the main part. So in this one and this one. And so basically, depending on the position of the bell pepper, the LEDs either are off, or in one mode, or in another mode. So there is like three positions for that switch. So you can, for example, position, like I have right now, all the bell peppers in position 3, or 2 if you do 0, 1, 2. And you would think that they would have the same effect, cycling through at the same pace or rate. And that's not true. So they are not synchronized. The effects seem to have somewhat random timing, whether on purpose or accidental, I do not know. It's a bit annoying. And in position 1, they are a bit more static, but still. And then if you put in position 0, then LEDs are off. So if you were to wire them with your own USB wires, when you provide USB power, the LEDs and the bell peppers will turn on if the bell pepper is in the right position, but you will have the time desynchronization thing, which might be a bit annoying, and there is no really truly static mode. For the chest, however, there is no way to have them always on. Let me demonstrate what I mean. So I have a little USB power bank here. It's currently in a low energy draw mode because the LEDs draw so little power. If you're using a battery bank, they usually require the device that you connect to the battery bank to kind of request power, and these LEDs draw way too little power to actually request it. so that it will not wake up the battery bank. So if you're using a battery bank, make sure you have like a low power mode or something like that. Anyway, so I connected the battery bank, and you can see that the LEDs are now lighting up in the bell peppers, and they already are random. So they're not synchronizing the effects, but you can see that the chest LEDs have not gone on. That is because the chest LED is on a button, and that button is not a positional switch, it's just a click. The way you click it is with the chin. So you grab the mohawk, you press it into the chest, let me turn the head. Come on. And we go. So you can see the chest LEDs are now coming online. The head unit LED will also come online in a second. And the cockpit comes online when you open the cockpit. I'm not going to do it at the moment because, as you can see in this pose, this kit is quite wobbly. I definitely will not have it stored in this pose. I'll probably have it like standing upright on the base. Anyway, I digress. So if you kind of put it on a shelf, you USB wire it. When your USB power comes online, the bell peppers will turn on and they will have their effects going on. So they will not just be static and shining, which would be my preference on the shelf. I like it to be lit up. I don't like it to be all disco on me. And for the chest, as you can see, the only way to turn on the LEDs, at least that I'm aware of, is that you have to press the chin button, and then they'll have these chest LEDs lighting up. They look pretty cool. The purple LED for the mono eye is also pretty cool, but you gotta reach out, you have to press it, and every time you turn the power back on and off, you have to do that again. A bit annoying, not gonna lie. It would have been nice if they just made it simpler, or if they went all the way. By simpler, I mean if they just had like on and off, like have the batteries, you flip the switch and the LEDs are on, or if they went all the way and provided us with an option to natively run the wires and natively USB power it. I mean, Cosmos does it. This was designed with LEDs in mind, so kind of a bit of a disappointment, but still, you know, we're complaining about having a really good kit with an LED set coming with it, and that LED set being not the best. I mean, it's still much better than, for example, not to slander Bandai, but at the same time, just a little bit. When I bought my Perfect Grade Exia, I would have had to spend another couple $100 to buy their LEDs, and they would be only battery powered. And I was, you know, yeah, I just bought Cosmos LEDs, you know, for that, and there is a video for that on the channel too. Anyway, moving on. For the armor, there seems to be some texture on the armor as it comes out of the box. So you will see in a bit of shots, and also I'll overlay some footage here, but the armor on the bell peppers and on the main body as well actually has texture to it. So if you don't panel line, if you don't top coat or paint it, it still looks fairly decent, which I liked. I was going to top coat it, but then I kind of changed my mind. If I did this build would have taken me easier, another month or something like that. Plus the weather is already on and off in Toronto. Anyway, but the packaging for the armor is actually not very good. So as I shown on community post and in a vlog, I think, for the build, in one of the, or both building vlogs for this build. So usually when you have multiple repeating runners, what you do is let's imagine this is the top of the runner where you see the face of the parts, right? And this is like the bottom of your palm is the bottom of the runner. Usually you would stack them back to back so that the faces of the runners do not rub against each other. And then you know, plastic bag them and back, right? What they did in this case, for some of my runners, they actually stacked them back to front, which meant that the back of the runner on top was rubbing against the front of the runner at the bottom, which damaged quite a few bell pepper runners. So you will see that on the footage as well, on an up-close shots. It's quite prevalent for these like wings of the peppers. Not cool. Very, very silly mistake. Could be easily avoided if the packaging is just a bit more careful. I understand that might require bigger box, but damaging runners for rather expensive kit or having a slightly larger box is a trade-off in my book. Still though, if you are planning to paint, or if you don't even do that, you'll see in the beauty shots that it's not like a cracked runner or something like that. It's just a little bit of battle damage, I guess. The U runner, which is a rather small black runner that is used for the Xeon logos on the forearms and on the chest, happens to... So the way they do the Xeon logo here is that you have a part, like a foundational white part that has the Xeon kind of crest sticking out of it. And then you have two black parts that fill in the gaps in the crest, and they provide the contrast out here. Those black parts, they are very, very fine. So it will be like a larger part with a very small detail sticking out of it. Somehow they use that, some of those small detail kind of standoffs on the part. They use them as part of the kind of attachment to the main runner. I guess it's because of the injection molding limitations or requirements or whatever. Basically what I'm trying to say is that the big box, the larger box where most of the armor parts are, that are not very well packed, and then shipping, they also get bounced around apparently quite a bit, but that's, you know, typical for shipping. For my U runner, they actually got damaged. So one part on that runner, as part of the Xeon logo on the right actually, was bent pretty badly, so there's a stress mark that you can see. And on the left side, the finer details actually fell off entirely. They just snapped off, and the part itself was just bouncing around not even in the bag, in the box. So there was a chance I could have lost the part. That would have been very, very unfortunate. But so more on the packaging side. They definitely could have and should have done a better job packaging up the kit, because that's just unacceptable, really. I was able to repair my Xeon logo, but if you look at it close enough, you see imperfections, and that is a bit annoying. So yeah, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, the decals and the manual. Let's start with the manual first. The manual for this is nothing really to write home about. It's pretty standard. It gives you the usual runner inventory as per standard. It doesn't tell you the plastic type, so assume it is ABS, and if you decide to panel line, then do not use acrylic-based panel liner, or top coat first, then panel line, or you can use water-based panel liner like this stuff from Steady that I've been using on my third-party kits for the last little while. Can we focus on this? Yes, we can. There we go. I just received the white one. Unfortunately, I just got it today. If I got it sooner, I would have tried panel lining the base for this kit with white. I wonder how that would have looked, but we're already done with that. And then the steps, they are quite fun. They're sometimes quite busy, the steps in the guide. So I gotta admit, I made quite a few mistakes during the inner frame build. I would quickly glance at the picture and like, oh, I know what I need to do here, and then I would like try for a few minutes to do something that was incorrect, get a bit frustrated, look back at the manual, I was like, I'm an idiot, I should have looked at it closer. So yeah, just be careful with that. They did pretty good with the decals though. So the decals sheet is quite massive. Here's the picture of that. And it's all split into sections. So, and there is a decal guide page per section. So this one shows bell peppers are section A. You have 4 of those on the sheet. You just cut out each section and you work on each bell pepper separately. And then the same for the legs, for the torso, and so on and so forth. It's a lot of decals. Most of them are pretty easy to work with. They are thin enough where they, they don't stick out of the on the surface too much. The paper they come on is really sticky. So usually with like G Rework decals, I use my like little moisturizer box. I just have that full of water, and there's no like standing water, but the sponge itself is quite moist. So I would just cut out the decals and put it on a sponge, and they get saturated with water from the sponge, and then the decal slides around very easily. In this case, the decals had to be actually submerged to slide off the paper easily. So what I chose to do instead is that I would grab two tweezers. One tweezer would hold the paper and another one would actually grab like a really fine tweezer from like Ray Studio or something, or DSPIA, to grab the decal itself and then place it on the armor. I found that a bit easier to work with. Usually I would just slide them onto the armor and then position them. I did use the mark setter as per usual and mark softer to then clean up the kind of dry marks from the liquids. I had some tearing in the decals, especially on the bigger ones that are on the bell peppers. They're just quite large, you need a lot of liquid, and even then it's quite easy to make something tear a little bit. But then once again, because you have a lot of liquid, you can kind of position it back in place and make it look like there is no tear. So hopefully none of them are obvious. Once again, if you're doing the water-based panel liners, be very careful with the water decals after, because unlike the Tamiya animal-based panel liners, which don't react to water at all, like it doesn't matter how much liquid or mark setter you put on top of the Tamiya animal panel liner that's dried out, with a steady, like a water-based panel liner, that thing is a mess. If it gets any liquid on it at all, like just a little bit of water, it just washes away the paint, and it's a lot of cleanup and redo after that. So be careful with this. For the decals, I used all of them except for the decals that go on these little rocket pods or whatever they're called at the end, because these decals that come in the decal sheet are supposed to wrap around. I tried a couple and they did not fit very well. I just did not want to deal with that really, so I just let that thing be. And I think that's, yeah, for the decals that's pretty much it. So for the like overall impressions and articulation and the build of the kit, what I really like is the amount of detail and the design. It's really good. They took the original design and they turned it into something truly amazing, right? It's like a resin kit on top of resin kit, and completely engineering that inner frame. I mean, the inner frame alone, hopefully you saw videos on the channel, it's just insanely good inner frame. The functionality of this kit is quite limited though. So there is a lot of like little gimmicks and hatches and sliding mechanics, which are cool in isolation, but once you have it assembled, even reaching some of them, let alone actually opening them, is really challenging. Because it's so small, it's 1/100 scale, everything is very, very kind of packed, very tight together. So it's not easy to, like, for example, reach the, let's see, in this pose it's not too bad. Let me turn it around a little bit. But it's not easy to like reach the legs here, for example, and open up on the side of the knee, these things. In this pose it's not too bad, but as you can see, this pose is not the best. Usually you actually want legs a bit closer together and you want them standing. That's when it's a bit more stable. But you know, it requires kind of tweezers, finessing, and you have to be really careful to kind of play with it. Posing it around, sure, you can do that, but if you really want to pose it around, you have to remove the bell peppers. So the bell peppers, they attach to this shoulder armor, which in turn attaches to the shoulder joint. So you can imagine a minute imbalance in the pose, and this thing just topples over. I had several times when I was trying to create this pose for the beauty shots, because all of this weight is on the torso ab crunch joint, and that thing begs for life. That thing has zero chance of holding all this weight. So if you happen to have a pose that leans forward a little bit too much or backwards, it just crunches over, and I was so afraid a couple times. It actually did happen. The kit did not fall, but the torso joint got so twisted, I was afraid I broke it. So a bit nerve-wracking. But if you take the bell peppers off, this thing is actually pretty fun to play with. It's really mean even without the bell peppers. It's really cool. It's got a lot of articulation. It's got retro joints in the I believe in the thighs here and in the ankles, and the knees are pretty stiff as well. Well, arms are not very stiff. They don't need to be really, but if they had a way, or if they had come up with a way to somehow lock the lower torso joint, like fix it in place with some sort of like mechanism, then this would have been easier to articulate with the bell peppers attached. But other than that, you have to just find a balanced pose, really. There is a really cool gimmick in the arms. So the handles for the sabers, they actually stored in like a forearm here, and you pull on a latch and the saber shoots out, like those knives where you flick your wrist and the knife shoots out, like in the movies. So really cool. Like there's a lot of these really fine, really cool touches. The base is also pretty nice. I like that the base, at first I wasn't sold on the base. It looked too small for the scale and size of this kit. Like the kit is grandiose, the base is modest, I'll put it that way. But having played with it a little bit, I haven't done the beauty shots already, I think it's actually perfectly done. So the base, just the kit itself, is very packed. It's packed with detail. There's a lot of detail molded into it. There's also, so that allows you to do a lot of like detail into it. It also has dedicated decals, which I applied all of them, and here's a picture of the base alone. So what I did is I applied all the decals, then I used DSPA markers and chrome markers to add even more detail there. If I had received my steady white panel liner, I probably would have panel lined it with white as well. Next one though, and it has some additional parts for like the light fixture. It has like some refueling stuff. It has the maintenance arm that is usually, it's almost tall enough to reach the cockpit when the kit is not in this elevated pose. And you have two actually pilot figures, one just standing up and one inside the cockpit. That's like a two-part figure. I don't have the tools or the skills at the moment to paint those figures. I tried to do it once with markers and that did not look very good, so I'm not gonna butcher them. But yeah, I mean, it's really cool. You can take, like with a macro lens, you can take shots from the level of the base with the minifigures to get more appreciation of the, like what would be the life size of this monstrosity, and it will be just ginormous. The base also has this sliding out part at the front, like additional maintenance hatch. So you can kind of create a pose where it kind of steps towards this. One weird thing about the base is that it has an opening hatch on the right side for storage. And while the base is symmetrical for the most part, the hatch on the left side is not opening. That one is molded in place. But the hatch that does open is pretty small, and it's really really short as well. So what you would want to store there is, of course, the spare sets of hands, of which you have 3 sets. At the moment, the set of semi-closed, like 45-degree, maybe even less, 30-degree angle that hold the sabers is attached there. There is a set of closed fists, and there is a set of open arms. There are no, all of them have articulated thumbs, but none of them are like fully articulated arms. So you would think that that hatch is purpose-built for the arm storage, spare arms, but you would be wrong. That hatch is not tall enough to store arms, especially, can we focus on that? Yes, we can. That hatch is not big enough to store the arms, especially with the armor attached. There is just no way that is going to happen, which a bit like, why did you bother doing that thing if it's not big enough to store arms, or if I need to disassemble arms to store them there? It's just a bit silly. And it's not big enough anyway, or spacious enough to store, let's say, spare effect parts. So if you don't use all of the effect parts, you have quite a few kind of left over, and some of them can be also very large. So like you're not going to be able to store this effect part there, right? So it's a great idea. I think it's still better done than Sky Defender, because in Sky Defender, the way they use the bottom of the base to store extra parts is you clip them onto the bottom of the base. So you have to take the kit off, you have to flip it over and clip them back in place. I mean, that's the single-handedly stupidest thing they've done with Sky Defender. Not having like a drawer that opens up and allows you to just throw in whatever parts you need to throw in. This is a better idea, but still a shoddy execution. This should have been a slightly taller base that would allow to store the spare parts and have maybe more spacious containers. But great idea, could have been done better. As for the rest of the kit, kind of the final remarks, I really love this, even with its drawbacks and not very good packaging, and you know, the action base that could have been done better, with the LEDs that are like a tease. Those LEDs, you look at them and you're like, oh my god, it could have been so much better if they made it just stupider, just simpler. Like those effects, the switches, whatever, you just try too hard and too much. But at the same time, the very same approach and thinking process is what I guess led them to create this overbuilt, absolutely insane design, and I love it. I love that I now have it in my collection. It's very much worth the time and wait for me. And in terms of the time and money, here's a quick message from Gundamit.
I buy almost all of my figures and third-party kits at Gundamit.com. They offer great prices, awesome customer service, and a nice points program. If you decide to shop for your next kit or figure there and would like to support this channel even more, consider using reviewer code SKH. It helps the channel a lot. As always, do your own research and only purchase from stores that you are comfortable with. Now, back to the video.
Really glad I built it. I hope you decide to add this to your collection. If you do, as I said, consider using my reviewer code. It really helps the channel. Highly appreciate you watching the videos. Got, of course, more builds on the way. If you have any questions, as per usual, feel free to drop them in the comment section. I'll either answer them in the comments as soon as I can, or in the next building vlog. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy the beauty shots for the Axis model Osiris Aerial Dominator. The time-lapse build will follow soon as well, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.